What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about The Strangers Chapter 3. This movie picks up immediately where the last film left off, where you have Maya who killed one of the strangers off, and now the other two are trying to hunt her down, while also at the same time trying to indoctrinate her into their little cult group by giving her the little murderous feeling that they have. So hopefully she'll be able to join them and be the other pinup girl after she killed the last one. And I have not really been all that excited for this movie. The only thing that really has gotten me excited about this is the fact that we finally have this movie in theaters and out of our mind. Not since the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy have I been really excited for a trilogy to finally be over, just so we can get done with it. But ironically, the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy is a way better trilogy than whatever we got with this movie. Now, I'm adult enough to admit when I was wrong, and I was desperately wrong about this trilogy. Mostly just the way that it was going to be released. Because after chapter 1 came out, the first thing that I said was the only people that loved chapter 1 were the people over at Netflix. Because that's exactly where I thought the last two movies were going to be dropped. And here we are in theaters with the third one. Now that we have this in and out, hopefully we're not back with chapter 4 and I can say that I was wrong again. But really the only saving grace about this trilogy is Madeline Pesh. Up till The Strangers Chapter 1, I wasn't really familiar with her work. And Lord help her, because she's trying her damnedest to make this trilogy work. Even though her character isn't all that interesting, the performance that Madeline Pesh is absolutely great. Really the only saving grace and the most watchable grace about this movie. Not only is she beautiful, but she is absolutely striking to look at. And if she wasn't doing her part in trying to make this trilogy at least watchable, then this would have been probably one of the most unwatchable trilogies. But she is trying her damnedest. Plus, there were two jump scares in this movie that actually got me, which is really the high praise that I can say about this trilogy, because really nothing about this trilogy has worked up to this point. Those are really the only two compliments that I can give this movie, because from here on out, I find it amazing that a whole hell of a lot of nothing happens in about 80 minutes. I think if you take out the credits, it's about an 80-minute movie, and just absolutely nothing happens. One of the biggest compliments that I can actually give to Strangers Chapter 2 is the fact that even though it wasn't a shot-for-shot remake of Strangers Prey at Night or Halloween 2, is the fact that they tried to infuse some interesting ideas. They just don't know exactly how to execute them very well. It feels like nobody planned this trilogy out. From what I hear is that this movie was originally intended as a one long 4-hour film. Now they're trying to do a whole bloody affair situation where they want to put all 3 chapters together and just have that one experience the way that it was originally supposed to be intended to view. And I can wholeheartedly say that probably won't be the best way to view it, because as these 3 individual chapters, they don't work or stand alone together. If these 3 chapters are the exact same movie just put together, it doesn't make the movie better. It just highlights the problem even more. And that is that the writing and directing don't complement each other, because every single step of the way there are stupid decisions and stupid moments. It's just a mind-boggling experience. And if you put these 3 together, it's going to highlight the problems, because the problems won't go away. It's still going to be there. And a lot of that has to do with writing and direction. But like I said, with chapter 2, they actually do infuse some interesting ideas. With chapter 3, they also introduce some interesting ideas. They just really don't fully commit to it, because they are just way too busy stuck on characters you don't give a shit about and decisions that just make you just rattle your brain. Even though I praise Madeline Pesh as an actor trying to make this trilogy work, there's nothing really interesting about her to make her a final girl or to follow her in this long ass journey where she is trying to just survive. I think one of the smartest things that the first chapter could have done was make her a secret stranger. Have it revealed at the end of chapter 1 that she was secretly a stranger and she just took her boyfriend there just so he can be the lamb to the slaughter. And if they would have made that interesting enough, this would have been an interesting trilogy that I would have actually wanted to see this whole thing just spliced together. Even though this is an R-rated franchise, the kills aren't really all that interesting. One of the kills happens off screen, and really the only gory thing about this movie is the fact that you have somebody get chopped up by a wood chipper, and that's just as far as the gore goes. This could have easily been a hard PG-13 trilogy. The kills aren't all that interesting, the characters are not all that interesting, and the answers that you desperately don't want are not really all that interesting. We spent a majority of this movie with flashbacks to when the strangers were younger and how they recruited one of the strangers as they went along. And even then, it doesn't really make anything really interesting with what they do. The whole motivation of why they go after people, you really don't buy it. You get a hint of it at the end of The Stranger Chapter 2, but they really don't make use of it at all. I think that's what makes this trilogy even more frustrating, is that you could have introduced some interesting ideas. If you have better writers crafting this trilogy and actually planning it out, it would have been a pretty solid trilogy that, even though I wouldn't have wanted the answers to why the strangers became the strangers, at least you could say that you tried to do something different. Then later on, you get introduced to Maya's sister, who has been missing for quite a while. Now they're coming into town trying to find her, see if anybody has any answers. It's her brother-in-law, and a driver that they have that kind of resembles Dembe from The Blacklist. And this is the most frustrating part about this, because with every step of the way, these are probably more stupider combined together than the boyfriend in chapter 1. Because you have a couple of sequences where they are trying to follow the sheriff, played by Richard Brake, because somebody tipped them about him being in on it and having this whole weird thing going on around town. And so they follow him for a couple of moments and a couple of sequences. One of the moments that they follow him is in a night sequence. And as a driver, if you're trying to follow somebody and you're not letting them know that you're trying to follow them, do me a favor. Turn off your fucking headlights so they don't know that you're actually following them in the fucking dark. And that is my biggest issue when it comes to this trilogy. This trilogy is just a bunch of random ass people doing stupid ass decisions that just frustrate you. And I just wish this trilogy could have been better. I'm probably going to be sounding like a record right now, but there are interesting ideas you could have executed pretty well. If you had better writers or a better director trying to helm this trilogy, it would have made for a better viewing experience while also having some interesting ideas. Maybe it wouldn't have hit the home run you wanted it, but at least you tried. And I think that is what makes this movie even more frustrating. They don't try to execute everything. Everything just feels half-assed, everything feels rushed, and you don't really just care about the characters. The characters aren't all that interesting. The kills most definitely are not all that interesting or all that surprising. It's just a bunch of stabbing and bloody sequences here and there. Other than Madeline Petch just doing her very best to keep this trilogy alive, there's really nothing redeeming, and all I can say is that I hope we don't get The Strangers Chapter 4, because fuck this trilogy. But those are my thoughts on The Strangers Chapter 3. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have checked it out, or if it's one that you absolutely just didn't bother with. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys for the next video.